Remember Newton's apple? 30 years of empirical evidence overwhelmingly points to sudden acceleration being caused by electronic system faults that are undetectable by inspection or testing. Just like Newton and gravity, we should deduce electronic failures from the actual vehicle performance. For the key Toyota models showing sudden acceleration problems, NHTSA must obtain, for all the drivetrain electronic systems and components, their safety specifications, software source codes, hardware design schematics, material production and quality specifications, test specifications and all the results, and then NHTSA should coordinate expert teams working in parallel to save time to systematically classify the fault potential mechanisms and their context of occurrence, like the weather, the altitude, the age of the vehicle. All this is what we mean by context. And were you pressing the brake pedal at the time, and all this sort of thing. And evaluate the data and use it to monitor and improve safety across the industry. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Next, we'll have Clarence Ditlow, the Executive Director of the Center for Auto Safety. And he'll make the last presentation, then we'll take questions.
Thank you. As Joan indicated, I'm the Executive Director of the Center for Auto Safety. And what I'd like to do is bookend Mr. Armstrong's presentation with some documents from NHTSA before the present Toyota sudden acceleration investigations and some recent recalls centering on electronics. Today, we just posted these documents on our website. And in 1986-87, NHTSA had unintended acceleration in investigations into Toyota vehicles. And what NHTSA did, it had the very, very good fortune of finding a Cressida, which would, in fact, occasionally suddenly accelerate. So they knew it was a bad vehicle. They took the Toyota to their Vehicle Research Test Center in Ohio. Although they could determine that it had something to do with the cruise control computer, they could never find what the mechanism was, what the failure mode was for that computer. All they knew is that if they took the cruise control computer from a good Cressida, or from a bad Cressida, and put it into a good Cressida, the two vehicles would switch their roles. Toyota demanded that the agency give it the computer to take to Japan to analyze. Once it was there, Toyota determined that, in fact, there was a flaw in the computer, which NHTSA could not find. NHTSA asked Toyota to do a recall because they had found that Toyota had installed a fail-safe circuit in the computer in later models that would prevent the acceleration. Toyota's response to NHTSA was, just because we do a design change that improves the performance of the vehicle doesn't mean there's a safety defect. Toyota told NHTSA, this is absurd, the demand for a recall. Just as Toyota is saying to NHTSA today, well, your request for, to the public, that your request for recall is based on the electronics. If we can't find it, it's absurd. The agency also explored the very problems that Mr. Armstrong was looking at today. And they required Toyota to produce information on their EMI testing, their electromagnetic compatibility procedures in the vehicles. And they forewarned that with the increasing complexity in electronic controls in vehicles, we're going to see more and more failures in those systems, leading to safety consequences such as unintended acceleration. Unfortunately, Toyota turned over some information to the government, and just as they did today, they claimed that it was proprietary. The public has never seen what Toyota submitted to the agency in the 1980s or in the 2000s in terms of electromagnetic compatibility and EMI, and indeed the computer programming in the vehicles themselves. As we go forward, though, what we did is an analysis of recent recalls. The trend towards recent recalls is to reprogram the computer in the vehicle. And on our website, we have a listing of 9 exemplary recalls, 3 of which involved an electronic transmission in which a cell phone can trigger the transmission to shift gears. So in other words, yes, indeed, there are recalls to show that interference from outside sources will cause electronic malfunctions. And the correction for that was to, in fact, to reprogram the computer in those vehicles. In addition, there are 7 other recalls that we have cited, including 2 of which, one by General Motors, one by Volkswagen, in which computer malfunctioning can cause the throttle to open. And the correction, once again, was to reprogram the computer. There are other examples of failures in other critical systems that resulted in recalls. And the answer is to reprogram the computer. And so for any company to say that it can't happen, well, it happened in the 80s, it's happening now, and we need to get to the bottom of this and do the type of electronic investigation that Mr. Armstrong and the other experts have suggested need to be done to pinpoint the problem. It is indeed rare, but that doesn't mean that we can't find it, and more importantly, it doesn't mean that we can't install countermeasures to prevent this from happening. Thank you.
So we'd be pleased to take questions now, and I would like you to ask you to introduce yourself. These are questions only by the press, so if you wouldn't mind doing that. And we have a mic that is going to come around.
Neil Rowland, Automotive News.
And who are you addressing your question to?
For any of the, or all of the 3 engineering experts, sure. Have you made any efforts to meet with NHTSA? If you have and they've not been, if you haven't met with them, what have those efforts been? If you have met with them, what were the circumstances and what kind of responses did you get?
I think I can answer that question for you, which is that there are plans to try and meet with them tomorrow, and then they can let you know what happens.
I can add to that.
Okay, go ahead. Have you?
In February of this year, is my microphone on? In February of this year, NHTSA arranged to meet me. Well, in fact, we had to do it by telephone in the end, but they...
Get closer to the mic.
NHTSA actually sought me out because they said they had nobody with my knowledge or experience on their staff. And I found that quite flattering. And we spent a little over an hour on the phone with 2 of their senior people. And Toyota was the subject, but I'm not at liberty to say what we discussed.
Was it a sudden acceleration?
Sure.